Good evening. My name is Noah Herndon, and this is the Groundview. Tonight, I had the opportunity to interview presidential candidates Noah Powers and his vice presidential candidate, Mackenzie Smith. We had the opportunity to discuss their message of walk worthy and specifically talk about how that message has played out in their life, both before they began campaigning and even now as their campaign continues to develop. A slight disclaimer: Mackenzie's audio sometimes cuts out and gets a little bit warbly, however, never too long that it needed to be cut. We hope that you enjoy this segment of The Ground View. Good afternoon, y'all. So excited to have you here. Noah and Mackenzie, thank y'all so much for joining me. It's great to have you here on The Ground View.
Absolutely, Noah. Thank you so much for having us. It's truly our pleasure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, just to get started, though I've had the opportunity to get to know you personally, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourselves to the Team Pack student body and the viewing audience, Mackenzie, we'll go ahead and start with you.
Yeah. Well, hey everyone. My name is Mackenzie Smith, and I am from the great state of Tennessee, where I enjoy some beautiful mountain views. Some things that I like to do is just play sports. So I play ultimate frisbee on a team here in Tennessee, which is super competitive. I've been involved with Team Pact for about 5 years. I started in the one-day class when I was about 11 or 12 and have been in it ever since. I had to skip a couple of years though because I played basketball. But I have absolutely fallen in love with the ministry as well as the program element, and has taught me so much and has grown me in my leadership skills as well as just my ability just to grow in my own faith.
And Noah?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, hey guys, my name is Noah Powers, and I'm from the amazing state of Michigan, where it's cold the vast majority of the year. You can only swim for about 3 months, I would say, in the summertime. And that is something I enjoy doing. I live on a 64-acre farm, so the vast majority of my work kind of relates to and surrounds, tending to chickens, taking care of fields, mowing trails, basically all of it. I just want to go into a little bit about my Team Pack experience and the way that it has transformed and shaped my life. So I first attended my first state class about 4 years ago, in the year of 2020. And unlike most kids, I was actually your political nerd who loved reading his Constitution, who would read it like before bedtime. He would, I would read it. I just love the Constitution. I love politics. I was a nerd in most sense. So my mom didn't necessarily have to drag me to my first state class. Moreover, I wanted to go out of my own volition and will. But it really, Team Pact in and of itself really transformed the way I viewed politics. When I initially attended my first state class, and maybe even for the first year or two, I thought that our faith and our politics were supposed to be separate. But moreover, Team Pact just helped me understand that the government is an institution that has been set in place by God and seen as it is such. We are to steward it well as believers and as people of faith. So our faith is supposed to inform the way in which we become politically involved. That's my major takeaway, honestly, from my Team Pact career. I've had the opportunity to go to many alumni events, state classes, meet so many different people, and Team Pact has really had a major positive spiritual impact in my life. So that's just a little bit about me.
Can you just tell me a bit about your Team Pack experience?
Yeah. So, like I said, I started as a one-day student when I was 11 or 12 years old. Unlike Noah, I unfortunately didn't want to be there. I actually loved politics and law, but when I saw all the homework I had to do, I was like, no, I can't do this. But I'm very thankful for my mom kind of forcing me to go. And after the first couple hours, I absolutely fell in love with it, and ended up going to the four-day class the next year. However, I did play basketball, like I said, so our tournaments were the same week that our state class was, so I had to skip a couple of years. But I did end up going to NatCon for 2 years, and then last year I got accepted to staff, and so I got to staff my first class last year, which was just an absolute blessing. And then I had the opportunity to travel staff this year, which has just been such an amazing experience, just to travel from class to class and to see the Lord work on each of those classes and to grow individuals in their leadership skills. So it's just been such an amazing journey, and I'm super excited to go to NatCon again this year.
It's definitely, and it's really cool to hear y'all's different experiences in it. The kid who was kicking and screaming to go to Team Pact, whereas Mackenzie was a bit dragged in. She got that pile of homework, which every single first time student has kind of looked at that PDF file, and I think it looks to be over 20 to 40 pages, and we immediately just cringe and get our pins out, knowing we're going to be spending a couple of nights with the lantern on. But no, it's incredible to hear that y'all have these very experiences coming in. Now, with the years you spent in Team Pact, I know it's an incredible organization that inspires and allows for many different experiences to occur. Are there any experiences or particular moments that really stick out in your Team Pact, and like your involvement with Team Pact? I'll start with Mackenzie. Just one moment that kind of stuck out in your Team Pact experience.
Wow, it's super hard just to choose one, but I'm just gonna go with just what I learned this year. And traveling, like I said, was just such an absolute blessing. But I did get tired and I ran out of energy. I did have a 2-week stretch for two of my classes, and that was very, very difficult. And I remember one night thinking, oh, I'm not going to make it through this week. But something that it really taught me was just to be completely dependent on the Lord in absolutely everything, even in something as little as rest. And, it sounds awful to be in that state of dependence, but it's actually such a beautiful thing. And it's what the Lord wants of us, and just to be living in that state of surrender and utter dependence on him. And so just during that second week, the week turned out to be amazing, and my rendezvous was super sweet. But what made it sweeter was just having to depend on the Lord for all of it, and just seeing the fruit of that. And it wasn't, it wasn't one moment like you're asking for. It was just that week in general. It was just so different because I was having to surrender and just pray for everything that I did. And the Lord blessed that, and I could really see him work that week, and just the conversations I had and just the way the class went. So like I said, not one moment, but definitely something that really encouraged and grew me this season.
And Noah?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Noah. And there are a lot of different ways I could answer it. But I would say one thing, this is a more general thing that has stuck out to me, but I'll give some specific examples. Throughout my Team Pact career, something that the Lord has really shown me is the capacity of young people to lead. Obviously, Team Pact as an organization exemplifies the call of 1 Timothy 4:12, which says, let no one despise you for your youth, but instead set an example. And I also had the opportunity to travel staff this year, go to multiple different states. And it really struck me. Oftentimes in our nation, we can look at, say, this generation, and we say to ourselves, it looks bleak. We don't see any hope. But having the opportunity to go around the country and realize that that standard of Christian excellence is being represented in so many different facets was inspiring to me. Particularly, I would say, on one of the classes I was on, obviously, we both know that there are elections that transpire throughout the Team Pact week, giving students the opportunity to run and to prove their excellence and lead in a spiritual fashion. And the governor who was elected was 13 years old out of about 90 students at the class. And that really struck me because it showed me that leadership is not limited to a certain age. It's not limited to a title. It's not limited to anything, quite frankly. You can lead at any age in any spiritual capacity. And just that was a specific example of something that I've seen, and it's a recurring theme. And it really gives me hope for this coming generation. As they graduate from Team Pact, they become involved in the real world. There are youth who are willing to lead, and there are youth who are willing to lead well and set Christ-like examples for others. So that's honestly one of my biggest takeaways and something that I've really learned and seen throughout my time in Team Pact, and I'm really excited to continue to see that as well.
No, and that's incredible to hear from both of y'all, Mackenzie, having that week to be able to experience, that aspect of rest, which is so important that we so often neglect, especially, we're heading into NatCon, which is probably one of the most, well, an event where we can socialize. It's also an event that's extremely stressful, especially for candidates. And going into this myself, this year with many plans for the ground view. So taking that opportunity to the rest of the board is incredibly important. And then Noah talking about leadership, that's especially important, especially with what Team Pack tries to do, inspiring younger, I wouldn't even say kids, just younger men and women who are being born into leaders through this organization, through these incredible experiences, and to be able to see that specifically through that one governor race is absolutely incredible. Now, moving into, that talk of elections, you talked about the governor. Y'all have, of course, decided to run for president and vice president. And would y'all mind explaining, what inspired that decision? How did y'all kind of decide to run? I'll start with the presidential candidate, of course, Noah Powers, and how he decided.
Yeah, so that's a really, really good question, Noah. So I came into this election season, that being January and the early months of this year, not really intending to run. I kind of planned on going to national convention, maybe doing a write-in Senate or rep campaign, who knows. I did not have any plans to run, but I knew that running was such an incredible opportunity because it gives you the ability to present in front of such a large audience a message that the Lord has laid on your heart. You can also impact people through just personal interactions, and it's a way to network and step out of your comfort zone in so many ways. So, fast forward to say Michigan of this year, the Michigan State class, which happened in late March. Mackenzie and I had the opportunity to staff together, and going into that week, I was not planning on running for anything. I still really wasn't. But then Mackenzie and I were on Masters of Elections together. It's a high intensity role where, you're working with each other quite a bit. So we worked on that. Mackenzie was coming off a 2-week stretch, like she mentioned. And really the deciding factor for me that kind of urged me to run almost was simply just having the opportunity to work with Mackenzie and then see her loving and genuine heart for others. I actually, in fact, we talked about running first coming off the Frisbee field. I think we were both pretty tired. We just played a really nice and competitive game, like a round robin game of Frisbee. But just seeing Mackenzie interact with people, love them so well, just in the name of Christ. She set such an excellent example for people. So that was honestly the major impetus behind us running. I asked Mackenzie to run for those very reasons, because I knew that we would have a similar vision and a similar goal going into this election. That being that we wanted to connect genuinely with people and we wanted to cultivate a Christ-centered community. So that's the main reason why I'm running.
How about you, Mackenzie?
Yeah, going into this season, I knew I wanted to run. I think running at NatCon is just such an amazing opportunity, and you can share a message and build community and reach out to people. And there's just so many benefits that comes with running and so many beautiful things that come out of it. So I knew that I wanted to run, but I didn't really think much about running for vice president or just like president at all. And going to the Michigan State class, that was nowhere on my mind. And then when Noah asked me, it kind of like, I don't know, it took me by surprise. I had to think about it a little bit, and I was praying about it. And I originally thought about saying no, actually. But then I asked Noah why he wanted to run. And he wanted to run to make genuine connections with people and to share the love of Christ. And that really, really stood out to me. And just know in general is just something that stands out to me. The first time I met him was actually not in person, our campaigns. And I remember like my campaign was so small, but he was just being so genuine and just like reaching out to people on his campaign and on mine. And he's just such an incredible leader. And I saw that in him during the Michigan State class again. And I thought, how could I say no to this opportunity? It's just such a great opportunity, like I said, to just share the message that Christ has put on our hearts, but as well as to reach out to people, to pray with them, to share what the Lord has been teaching us. And by the Lord's grace, we've been able to see that. And the Lord has built such a sweet community. And when Noah told me, that he wanted to run a genuine campaign, at first I was like, okay, how is that going to be done? Is that going to be done well? And now looking back, and just seeing where our campaign is right now, you can definitely see, he wasn't just saying that. That was his legitimate goal, and the Lord has been able to build that. So that's kind of the reason why I said yes, is just seeing Noah's character and his heart for the campaign.
Wow, no, that's absolutely incredible. And this focus specifically on this idea of interaction, not necessarily just within the campaign, but with other people, with interacting with other people, with shining a light within you to other people, is something that I think so far is unique that y'all have focused on in your campaign, or at least specifically in your interview. And so that's incredible to hear. That's something that is really what we want to see embodied in leadership. And so I appreciate y'all kind of talking about that. One of the other big things you talked about, of course, is the message that you kind of had laid upon your hearts that you wanted to share with the Team Pack student body. So starting with Mackenzie, could y'all kind of tell me, what is your message, and how did y'all come to decide upon it?
Yeah, of course. So I think our message is really cool. And just like seeing the Lord work through that. When we first decided to run together, we both had different ideas for a message. Noah wanted to go something along the lines of the pursuit of holiness and the a call to action. And I wanted to do something along the lines of ministry. And so we were thinking about, well, what is a message that kind of embodies all of that, so that we can both be passionate about it, so we can both take what we've learned and bring that to Team Pack Nation. And we just ran across this passage of scripture in Ephesians 4. It talks about walking worthy. And I feel like that embodies everything that both of us have been learning, just pursuing holiness and ministry, and not that being something that you do every once in a while, but that being the way in which you live your life. And so that's kind of how we decided upon the message, is just embodying both of those things that we have both been learning. But yeah, like I said, our message comes from Ephesians 4:1-2, and it's talking about walking in a manner worthy of what we've been called to do. And something that I've been thinking a lot about with this is, a walk, it's the way that we're living our lives, right? And so Paul gives specific examples of that. So walking in humility and love and gentleness, but also that can be expanded to so many other things, in selflessness or in purity. And so I love this message, and just thinking of it, how we pursue Christ with our lives, and how we're sacrificing and surrendering our lives in such a way that Christ is reflected in all that we do. And so that's our message, is just walking worthy of the calling to which we've been called.
And Noah, how about your opinion on the message?
Yeah, so like Mackenzie said, when we were kind of coming up with ideas for messages, I had one idea, she had another one. We kind of had not differing ideas, but moreover, our ideas kind of focused on one thing, that being a call to action on the part of the believers, a charge and a mission, something that we are supposed to fulfill. And we ended up deciding on running with, obviously, from Ephesians, the message of walk worthy. And I kind of want to just expound upon that a little bit, like what it means to walk worthy. And it kind of actually comes from the theology of Ephesians, because throughout the entire book of Ephesians, Paul is presenting two different things. He's presenting the way in which we once walked when we were dead in the trespasses of our sins, as he mentions in Ephesians 2:1-2. And then later in Ephesians 4:1-2, he mentions that we have been made alive in Christ. Therefore, we are called to something higher, right? So he's drawing this dichotomy to two different things throughout the entirety of the passage. But God, being rich in mercy, made us alive in Christ. Therefore, what are we supposed to do? There is a response because of that. We are to walk worthy in gentleness, in humility, in patience, and in love. In John 15, Jesus says, I am the vine and you are the branches. And then later he goes on to say that we are supposed to bear good fruit if we are in him. So therefore, if we are walking worthy according to a calling, what exactly is this calling? This calling is to bear the fruits of the Spirit, and it is to bear good fruit that comes as a result of good and genuine faith. And James talks about this as well. So kind of just going back to Ephesians, That was really the main impetus behind our message. We wanted to call the believers to something. We wanted this to be a form of action that we ourselves could be held accountable to and that we could exemplify. And it's an encouragement to us as well to know that we have been called by Christ, as he even says in John 15 as well. Those who I have chosen, they are supposed to do good works for me. So therefore, it's a call to action on the part of the believers. And that's honestly why we're running with this message. And we are really so excited to run with it. The message of Walk Worthy is something that the Lord laid on our hearts, something that we were drawn to. And we're so excited to get the opportunity to present it at National Convention, because there's so many ways in which this can be practically applied in our lives. So there's my little spiel. I'm really, really so excited that we're running on this message.
It's been incredible to see y'all's campaign develop this message and share it with the Teen Pack student body. Very excited to see how it continues to develop, and I'll continue to share this message with the student body, especially taking from Ephesians and that call to action, which I think is so important. Because of the fact that we need leaders who are willing to call us forth to specifically engage in different aspects of our faith, to not stand idle in our faith. And I think that y'all are addressing that in a really tactful way, and I do appreciate that. Now, I do want to ask, as you've been coming up with this message, have you seen it kind of play out in your own life in certain aspects? Are there any ways where you feel like the message has revealed itself almost in interactions or experiences you've had? We'll start with Noah and Mackenzie.
Yeah, that's a really, really good question, Noah. So like I was saying before, this message is something that we can practically apply in our lives. It's a universal call to all believers. So when you take the idea of walking worthy, Paul explains a few areas in which you can walk worthy, because we have been called out from death into life because of the grace of God. So translating that into my life, I have been looking for ways in which I can, walk in humility, walk with patience, walk with gentleness, and just walk with love. That could perhaps mean interacting with my siblings, interacting with others. But moreover, it just means setting a standard of conduct that is in line with the calling that God has given you. We have been called to something higher. Therefore, that is what we should live to. We should not live as if we are still dead in our sins. Moreover, we should live as if we are alive in Christ. So those are just some of the few ways in which I have been able to practically apply that message in my life. And I'm constantly looking for ways to do that too. Obviously, walking worthy doesn't just include when we're running this campaign. It extends far past that. This is the calling for the entirety of our lives. We are to walk worthy from, the moment where God extends his grace to us to the moment when we, we perish from this earth and we go to him in glory. We are to walk worthy in so many different ways, in all different areas and at all different times. So those are just a few ways in which I have been able to walk worthy in my personal life.
Yeah, the Lord has used this message to just challenge and convict me in just different ways. It's something that I was thinking about and learning about before we even decided to run together. And something that I was seeing in my own life was just, I was going, to ministries like Teen Pack or serving within the church. And, I'm so on fire for the Lord, able to do all of these things, serve in many different ways and love others well. But when I come home, it's hard and it's different to do those things. And it's so easy to stop or just to slow down because it's harder. And so something the Lord has just been challenging me is just like, ministry and pursuing holiness, loving and being gentle and pay people. That's not something you do just once or just every so often. That's a lifestyle. And you see that in our message of walking worthy, walking in Christ. That's the way we live our lives. And so it's been convicting for me to think about, okay, how am I loving someone here in this ministry, but how am I loving them and others back at home with that same passion, with that same desire to lift them up, to look them more like Christ. And so it's just been a challenge for me, as well as an encouragement to think about those things and to think, how am I walking excellently in all areas of my life? So yes, this message has been just amazing and just so good to dwell on, even for me, as we're running with the message.
No, and that's absolutely incredible to hear that you've seen this message, which I think is extremely applicable to real life, play out in your own lives, especially as you're moving into NACON, especially as you're moving towards those increased in-person interactions where people are going to be. I think that's one of the big things of NatCon is people look to see whether or not a message actually is lived out in a candidate's life. And so hearing that y'all have experienced this even before you have this message fully scripted out in your heart, is absolutely incredible to hear. Now I do kind of want to shift gears, begin to talk more about the political side of this election. And, to start off with that, party announcement is one of the biggest things within the presidential election. We've seen every single ticket announce which party they're going to be running in, and y'all have announced that you're running in the Perseverance Party. So may I just ask, what influenced that decision and what kind of inspired y'all to choose Perseverance? We can start with Noah and go to Mackenzie.
Yeah, that's a great question, Noah. So when Mackenzie and I were kind of talking about running, one of the first things we kind of discussed was what party would be running. And there wasn't really much discussion about it. We kind of both decided that, if we were to run, we would be running in the Perseverance Party. We both have run prior campaigns in that same party. And the party best aligns with our personal views as well. It's also it's obviously, on par with Vision. It's one of the two largest parties. So that means that you have the opportunity to share your message with more people, up to 350, depending on the size of the primary. So those were just a lot of contributing factors as to why we decided to run. So that's honestly all I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. There isn't really much more to that. There obviously is some strategy in choosing what party you run in, but also with Perseverance being a bigger party, I think just in general, it's really such a great opportunity for people to get to know us, but as well as just know our heart for the campaign and to just hear our message and just to share the love of Christ in that way. And so that would be the only thing I would add to what Noah said.
Absolutely thrilled to see what Perseverance holds. It's going to be the biggest party in terms of presidential tickets. And of course, it looks to be the biggest for representative and senatorial as well, which differs from last year. Vision was the biggest ticket last year. And so to see that kind of switch back to Perseverance is very interesting to see. Now, as the interview is beginning to wind to a close, I do want to give you all the opportunity as is given to every single candidate in every single interview to say one last thing to the Team Pack student body and to the viewing audience, whether it's regarding your message, your campaign, you yourself, or just a message you'd like to give to the Team Pack student body, whatever y'all like to share. We'll start with Mackenzie and then end with Noah.
Yeah. First off, thank you so much, Noah, for having us and for giving us the opportunity to just share more about ourselves, what our campaign is about, and what we value and believe. Such a great opportunity, and we're truly grateful for that. My last words to everyone would be, I for one am super excited to go to NatCon and meet everyone and to build some more connections. But I encourage you guys, learn about the candidates, try to understand, what are they all about? What do they believe? What are they passionate about? And just to vote based off of that. And I truly cannot wait to see everyone and to meet you guys. So yeah.
And then Noah.
Absolutely, Noah. In closing, I just want to say a few things. For one, Mackenzie and I are so thrilled to be running. It's an awesome opportunity to represent the Team Pack Nation just as a campaign and create those genuine interactions through a Christ-centered community. Once again, we're running on the message of walk worthy, a call to pursue holiness and to pursue having good fruit as a result of our faith. And as I already touched on that, I just want to leave you guys with a few additional notes. Obviously, National Convention is coming up so very soon. And believe me, we could not be more excited to meet all of you and have the opportunity to just personally connect and interact. Because at the end of the day, when the election results come in, win or lose, what are you left with? You're left with the relationships and the community that you built prior to the election and throughout the election process. That is ultimately the most invaluable thing that you could possibly gain from the entirety of this process. And that is truly something that we have prioritized. And seeing as that is such, there's still time to meet us. We would absolutely love to get you connected with our community. You can go ahead, DM us on Instagram, join our GroupMe. There are 1,000 different ways to get connected. Mackenzie and I would love to reach out to you, talk to you, get to know you, tell you about our message, and just really create those relationships through Christ-centered community. I cannot wait for National Convention, and I cannot wait to see you all there.
Yeah.
Your excitement is mirrored in me. I'm so excited to be able to see y'all all in person, to see the viewers of the Groundview, to see the different candidates, to be able to finally see people in person once again. It's going to be absolutely incredible. And the mindset that y'all shared, the fact that, you know, at the end of the day, after the election, what are y'all left with? You're not, well, yes, there's the title, and there are certain powers given to the president, to the national, like what you are ultimately left with for the average voter and for most candidates is going to be the friendships and the relationships and the memories that are made along the way. Not necessarily the title, not necessarily your name being called on the stage, but more so the memories that you made of the campaign, of the different people you met and the relationships you built. And I think that's an incredible mindset that y'all have just encouraged to kind of end off, and I'm very excited to see how that ends up playing out. Well, y'all, Noah and Mackenzie, thank you so much for joining me this evening. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to interview you. The Groundview is incredibly excited to see how your campaign continues to develop as we move into NatCon.
Thank you so much for
you,
having us,
Noah.
Noah.
Yes.
It has been a true joy, honor, and pleasure.
Mm-hmm.